in a recent BIFM economic review of Botswana, Econsult examines how the Botswana economy is responding to the recovery from recession in the global economy. The big talking point, of course, is the demand for the country's biggest commodity, diamonds. Earlier, Sue Beerkus spoke with Keith Jefferis, the economist at Econsult Botswana, about how demands for Botswana's diamonds have been Q1 compared to the same period last year.
We don't have GDP figures yet for the first quarter. We will expect those in a few weeks' time, but certainly the evidence from diamond sales internationally is that there has been considerable recovery. So that compared certainly to the first quarter of 2009, which was dismal, diamond sales in the first quarter of 2010 have been greatly improved, although still below the peak levels that we saw in 2007 and 2008. So on the diamond side, the mines are operating close to full capacity, prices are good, and exports have been quite healthy. And I think we're seeing similar recovery in Botswana's other main mineral exports, which are nickel and copper, where prices are up substantially since the depths, since the lows they reached in the depths of the recession.
You've also seen an increase in prices of rough diamonds, and obviously that bodes well for Botswana's diamond trading company. But I wonder what it means for Botswana's fledgling cutting and polishing industry and the health of that industry.
Well, I think they're being squeezed because what's happened is that rough prices, as you say, have recovered strongly over the last few months, but it seems that polished prices have not increased by anything like the same amount because the retail market, while improving, is still quite weak, particularly in the US, where consumer confidence remains somewhat fragile. So the cutters and the polishers are being squeezed between rising rough prices and polished prices, which are not going up so much. So their margins are under pressure. It's not a very easy time for them at the moment.
Have you seen a number of these cutting and polishing companies actually closing down, or have they received substantial support from government?
No, they haven't received support from government in terms of direct subsidies. What we did see is that most or many of them actually suspended production during the depths of the recession, and what we're seeing is that they're partially reopening. We're certainly not seeing the industry back to anything like the capacity that we had a couple of years ago. So they're still sort of treading fairly cautiously.
You know, but before this whole recession took hold of the world, there was a concerted effort by the Botswana government to diversify its economy, and I wonder if there has been a move to expedite that process, having seen the effects of being very dependent on one or two minerals in Botswana.
Well, we haven't seen any specific new initiatives, but the continuation of a variety of ongoing initiatives, and I think there has been some success, although Botswana remains very dependent on diamonds. We're actually less dependent than we were 10 years ago, and there has been quite some diversification within the mining sector, and also other sectors of the economy have done quite well. So we've seen tourism grow. That's now the second largest export, and other aspects of the domestic economy have been reasonably healthy during the recession, and in fact the non-mining sector kept growing at a reasonably good rate while the mining sector was badly hit. So there is some degree of diversification. I think not nearly as much as we need to see, but it is ongoing. One of the things that the government is implementing at present is something that they call the hubs, which is to focus diversification on some specific initiatives. So there's an idea of an innovation hub to encourage sort of young innovation technology companies, education hub, diamond hub to help diversify the diamond industry, agriculture hub to try and commercialize agriculture. So these are ongoing projects where government is paying for some of the infrastructure and trying to introduce some policy reforms which will hopefully provide opportunities for the private sector in those targeted areas.
Keith, very quickly, just your growth forecast for the rest of this year and the biggest challenge that Botswana faces in 2010.
Well, I think the overall growth will look quite healthy, driven by recovery and mining, so we'll probably see growth around between 6 and 8%. I think the weakness is going to be sectors that are very dependent on government spending, because during the last 2 or 3 years, government has opened up quite a large budget deficit, and to try and close that gap between revenue and spending, government spending is going to be capped with no increase in this year. So sectors like construction, which are very dependent on government spending on infrastructure, I think are going to have a tough year.